Hey everybody, Brian here. Welcome back to Wax Trash Treasures. Nice to see you. Nice to be seen. We're going to have another rant from me today. Won't that be fun? I wanted to talk a little bit about card trimming. And for those of you who've been following along, you've probably heard this story already. A couple of months ago, a buyer purchased a 2018 Shohei Ohtani numbered out of 76 Independence Day parallel. That card was graded at a BGS 9. And the reason it wasn't perfect is because one of the corners was an 8.5. It had a little ding, a little bit of whiting on it. That card was serial number 12 out of 76. About a month after that, buyer bought a PSA 10 Independence Day parallel from 2018 Topps featuring Shohei Ohtani with perfect corners and perfect edges. It was a thing of beauty, and it was numbered 12 out of 76. If you haven't figured it out already, and I'm sure that you have because you're all smart people, what that means is that somebody took a ruler and a straight and a knife, or they took a paper cutter and they took a little bit of knowledge and a steady hand and they turned a dinged corner into a straight corner by taking off a millionth of an inch on the side of the card. And that's bad because it defrauded a buyer out of the difference between $11,000 and $2,000. That's $9,000 that somebody got scammed out of because somebody bought a card and they trimmed it. There's a lot of trimming of cards that goes on in this hobby. I mean, there are videos out there that explain how to do it. I'm not going to link to one. I'm not going to mention the author. You can find it if you want to. If you do those things, you're a terrible person and your mother is disappointed in you. But it's pretty prevalent, and it's a safe bet that there's a whole lot of trimmed cards in PSA 10 and SGC 10 and BGS 10 holders that wouldn't have been before somebody got their hands on them and put a little bit of manual skill into them. I don't know how to react to that. Like, part of me says, maybe we should ask the grading companies to just open the floodgates to trimmed cards to say, yeah, these cards aren't altered, which is, I think, the PSA tag, but instead they're restored to the way that whatever God supports baseball cards and football cards intended them to be when he blessed them with his noodly appendage, or however the hell it is that this theology works. I don't honestly know. So maybe PSA and SGC and BGS should just say, yeah, we're going to grade altered cards. We're going to call them altered cards. We're going to call them restored cards. And we'll say this is the way that they were supposed to be looking when they came off the line. Sure, that's one option. I think it's a crappy option, but it's an option. Another option is to say, well, let's call out all the card graders. Let's ban them from submitting. But then those guys are going to go and start, like Evan Mathis, actually. He's a known trimmer, and he's been banned from submitting. So what does he do? Well, from here on out, he's probably going to submit through group submissions. And he's probably actually going to have a friend do it. He's going to hand his friend a $20 bill and a card to go get graded. That friend's going to go to the card store that does the group submissions, and they're going to send it in, and no one's going to be the wiser. And that's pretty scammy. I think it sucks. I think it's terrible. Like, these cards, I tend to over-moralize, but these cards have a history, and that history is reflected in the edges, in the dings, in the shininess or the non-shininess of the chrome surfacing, of the corner whiting. Like, that reflects all of the hands that have held this card and the way that this card has gone through the universe. And, maybe there's part of me that is like, the focused energy of the universe that has transited through this card has changed it in some way, and that's a little philosophical perhaps, and a little animist, and a little silly, but there is something to it, I think, right? Like, these cards have a history. Who knows how they've been touched, how they've been handled, who's touched them, what children or collectors have handled a card before it reaches your hands. And that's reflected in the condition of the card. And maybe that's bad, right? Like, maybe that card was used to go in bicycle spokes and go and destroyed its value. Or maybe that card was dropped by somebody who was so glad to pull it, and they were so excited, and they were literally shaking, and they dropped it, and it dinged the corner. Or maybe it was just a factory mistake, and it got scuffed coming off of the roller. I don't know. What I do know is card trimming is bad. And we're lucky in this case that it's so easily exposed. But it also reflects that maybe the card grading companies are moving a little too fast. Maybe they're grading a few too many cards. If you can't take the time to look at this card as a $10,000 card, by the way, and you can't take the time as a company to just Google it, to Alta Vista it, or to web crawler it, or whatever the hell web browser and search engine they use at these company offices, and just look up Shohei Ohtani, 2018 tops, 12 out of 76, and just see if it comes up as sold. And if it was sold, what the pictures look like. This is something that I think these grading companies are going to have to start doing. They're going to have to start actually researching the history of these cards, and they're going to have to start looking and saying, was this sold before? What was its grade before if it was graded? What did its pictures look like? Do the cards that we have in our hands now look like the cards that were sold before? Or you could do what I do and just collect a bunch of junk wax stuff, which has no inherent value anyway, and not worry about it. It's a thought. It's not for everybody. That's okay. Thanks for watching.